So my name is Alice Bromage and I do performance and leadership coaching. So my own business is called Empowering Success, but today I am representing the Black Mambas, who are an all-female anti-poaching unit based down in South Africa in Greater Kruger, and who I've been working with over the last couple of years. They were the world's first female anti-poaching unit, and the amazing piece is that their work has been so appreciated that there's now units developing in Zimbabwe and Kenya, and so I do that as my pro bono piece to give back, is doing the training and development with them for the last couple of years.
Absolutely fascinating. Now, Alice, what led you to get into anti-poaching?
So I was in the British Army for 20 years, and this is kind of our old rig from leftover in the 1990s and early 2000s. And I answered a Facebook advert saying they were looking for an ex-military female coach and trainer to go out and help the Mambas, because essentially they won an amazing award in 2015 with the UN for all the anti-poaching work they'd been doing. And in 2016, the poaching numbers for rhinos started to really skyrocket. So I was asked to come in and help reinvigorate their motivation, their drive, and they've gone from strength to strength, not just because of me, because of their hard work, but so that's how and I guess 20 years worth of counterinsurgency, organised crime, leadership development, it naturally fits into the anti-poaching arena.
Excellent. And what do you think had changed? What caused that increase in poaching during the early 2015s?
So big change is legal. And so there was a anticipation that, so essentially wildlife crime is just another organised criminal activity. So especially for this arena, where it's all about anti-money laundering and being able to ensure that your clients the due diligence has been done. 2016 was when they thought that the law was going to be changing in South Africa and that you'd start to legally be able to trade rhino horn. And so whilst they were waiting for those legal changes, that's when there was then a spike, because then whoever already has the product will be able to sell it legally. And legal changes can make a really big difference on drive.
And so from a strategic point of view, what was the grand overview when trying to tackle that spike and kind of help reduce it in a kind of general scheme?
So the support of the international community has been huge, because training and running anti-poaching units is an expensive business, because it's not just putting boots on the ground, it's also feeding them in the resources, but also events like this where it's being able to galvanise the financial industry. So the Royal Foundation essentially has set up a financial task force. So United for Wildlife Financial Task Force, so that's now got over 40 big banks in it, looking for the indicators and warnings of financial transactions. A bit like with the mafia, you follow the money. Rusi's done a big paper in 2017 about follow the money. And essentially, if you can do your audit train, you'll be able to put somebody in jail. Because the piece we do, which enables them to be initially arrested or tracked, means nothing if you haven't then got the financial backing and the forensics to be able to show due diligence in a court that crime has truly been undertaken. It's not just hearsay or other local factors. And also the other aspect of the United for Wildlife Task Force has been a logistics task force. So essentially the three parts of the Royal Foundation support to this is, one is training up rangers, which is more the side I guess I deal with, but out with the foundation. Then the logistical task force, and then the piece which really is for here is the financial task force, which is going great guns. And that helps train up the bankers at all different levels so they know what to look for, your red flags, and essentially the reputational risk of things like large banks and financial institutions supporting illegal activity, of which wildlife crime is one, is pretty big. I believe the fines are gargantuan if you get caught for money laundering.
That's insane. So really tackling it from the top down involves, as you mentioned, getting the banks involved. In terms of geopolitical, how do you stop other nations from legalizing, for instance, the ivory trade? And do you think you can change the banks to hopefully go after them, from this point of view? Leaning
in the influence of some of the big banks. So Standard Chartered has been a real kind of front runner in this, and they've been working closely with the financial task force, and actually have been some of their personnel have been some of the ones that helped set it up as they've migrated over. But the Fatef changed to being Chinese chairman this year, and he put number one priority was illegal wildlife crime. So yeah, there's a big driver of, if you don't have a customer base, you don't produce a product, and people with money are the people who are the ones who are going to be buying wildlife products.
That's incredible. Now, from a tactical point of view, on the boots on the ground, what's the process involved with stopping the trade and effectively the poaching of animals in the first place?
So if there's multiple aspects, so if you imagine it like an onion, so you've got your asset in the middle, which will be your rhino for us. That's the main piece that the Mambas look at, is protecting the rhinos, but that could be an elephant or a pangolin or lions. 6,000 lions taken out of South Africa roughly last year, as in carcasses to be able to be sold on. So then you've got your awareness around it. So you've then got your anti-poaching unit, like the Black Mambas. They walk 10 to 12 Ks every morning and every night. They're out in vehicles, patrolling the area, looking for indicators and warnings of anybody that's come in. Out with that, you've then got your police, and you've got the armed guard response units, and then also the population. And that again is where the financial industry has a huge part to play. Things like microloans, being able to create an environment where you can legally make money and do good business, and where you are removing a lot of the pressures, the social economic pressures that encourage people to go towards poaching. And say, for example, in Kenya, you've got the M-Pesa system, which actually removes the use of money, so to speak. You're doing it a lot on electronic transfer. So that's much harder to do the money laundering and the bribing, stealing of cash, literally for robbing people. And if you imagine when you're doing the poaching, you've got to pay not only the people that help you find the asset, the animal, then you've got to pay the shooter, the person who's going to kill the animal. Then you've got to pay someone to transit it, comms systems. It's not a cheap business.
Oh, wow.
So all of those, same as a normal regular business, take financial transactions.
It's absolutely incredible. And now, obviously, you mentioned the Black Mambas, and through efforts
Yes.
of your own, that you've started to expand up Southeast Africa towards Kenya. Can you tell us, what's that process like? Is there a very unilateral discussion, or can you work together?
It's been amazing. It's organic. So I went with the Mambas to talk at the Explorers Club. They were the keynote speakers in 2017 over in New York. And there was a member there who just thought it was an amazing piece and went back to Zimbabwe and started looking at how to set up their own. The ladies in Kenya are from the Maasai, and that's the first time that the Maasai ladies have been put into this arena. So I think it's just empowering people to know that we can all make a difference, and it doesn't matter where you come from. Our decisions, the example you can set. The Mambas have done amazing work of going over to Australia and speaking, coming to the UK. Helping Rhinos is kind of the charity that helps do the fundraising, of which I am just an individual within that fundraising pool, if that makes sense. So I do all of mine independently, but we put the money through Helping Rhinos so that there's the full financial audit train. But how does it spread? I think through enthusiasm, passion of knowing that we only have one chance to keep the planet as it is, and we all want to live in an environment where we think it's safe to operate. And organised crime does nothing for helping create a safe and secure environment. As you can imagine, 20 years in the army, I've spent a lot of time abroad where we're trying to create safe and secure environments. That initial social decay, or some of those aspects that create a counterinsurgency, are often financially driven and power driven. And this is just another aspect of that.
I've got to ask you, in a societal way, have you won over the hearts and minds, or is there a pushback towards anti-poaching, or is society at large generally pro anti-poaching?
I think so. The interesting piece is the social decay around some of the reserves mean that literally when they look into a reserve, it could appear that it's a kind of bastion of Wests or white people keeping the animals behind a large fence. In reality, if you can turn that into a viable concern where you're helping feed the families, so all of the rangers are now bringing in a regular income that enables the families to have a regular income. The Mambas, for example, also have a sister project which is called the Bush Babies. So that's where they then are educating 1,100 children around the reserve. So again, you're now providing education back. which is another piece that enables all of us to develop. In the UK, we're so lucky because we have an education system that's available to all. In South Africa, that is the case, but it varies, as ever, from school to school.
Sure.
So being able to help educate all the local children around the reserve also helps the anti-poaching piece, because then they understand why it's important. It's future jobs for them. It's being able to create a local economy of then you've got tourists coming in, you've got vehicles to be fixed, you've got houses to build, you've got, you know, the food provision, be it for the locals or for visitors. So you're creating economies around the wildlife rather than just the fact that they are just a commodity to eat or to sell to a foreign nation.
Incredible. Well, and lastly, I've got to say, we're here at CIWAS.
Yes.
How have you had your talk yet?
No.
How was it?
So 10:45, I will be on with Dermot, who is the director of Smart KYC, who have invited me to come today, and lovely Avalon, who is South African and has been the linchpin between introducing the black mambas into this arena. And so from that aspect, come along at 10:45, please. And we've got 15 minutes, and wonderful Trish from the Standard Chartered is going to answer some of the big questions on how the financial industry can help as well. So
brilliant.
but the big piece is all banks can make a difference, and we're not asking you to do something extra. We're just asking you to use the knowledge you already have, the processes you have already for anti-money laundering and fighting organised crime, but through the lens of illegal wildlife trade.